"We're funding Brianna's year abroad in Paris," my father announced over Sunday dinner, his voice carrying that familiar tone of pride reserved exclusively for my younger sister. $80,000, full tuition at the Sorbonne, housing in the Marais district, and a living stipend. I set down my fork carefully, maintaining my composure. My mother beamed at Brianna, who sat across from me wearing the satisfied smile I'd seen countless times before. "That's wonderful," I said evenly. "Congratulations, Bri." My father turned to me then, his expression shifting. "Now, before you ask, this doesn't set a precedent. Your situation is different. You chose community college. You've made your choices." The words hung there like a challenge. What he didn't say, but everyone at the table understood, was that I didn't deserve the same investment. I was 24, working full-time as a medical billing specialist while finishing my associate degree. Brianna was 21, their golden child who'd attended an expensive private university on their dime. My name is Sophie Carter, and at this moment I realized my parents had finally said out loud what I'd always suspected they believed. "You don't deserve any help," my mother added, dabbing her lips with her napkin. "You've always been independent. Brianna needs our support." The assumption in her voice was absolute. I had always managed. Therefore, I always would. Therefore, I should. My sister's phone buzzed and she squealed, showing our parents' apartment photos from Paris. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Notre Dame. I excused myself to the bathroom and stood at the sink, gripping the cool porcelain. My reflection stared back, calm and composed. What they didn't know was that their dismissal had just activated a plan I'd been quietly building for 18 months. The medical billing job they thought was my ceiling. It was my foundation. I'd been documenting every billing error, every insurance loophole, every gap in the healthcare payment system. I'd been teaching myself medical coding at night, earning certifications they knew nothing about. 3 months earlier, I'd incorporated my own medical billing consulting company. The paperwork sat in a drawer in my apartment, waiting for the right moment. That moment had just arrived. I returned to the dining room where my parents were discussing Brianna's departure date. "When do you leave?" I asked my sister. 6 weeks, she replied, already scrolling through Parisian cafes on her phone. "I can't wait to get out of this boring town." Our hometown of Riverside wasn't boring. It was practical, affordable, and full of small medical practices struggling with billing inefficiencies. I'd been mapping them systematically. "I'm happy for you," I said truthfully. Brianna's privilege wasn't her fault. My parents' favoritism, however, was a choice they'd made repeatedly. After dinner, I drove to my modest apartment and pulled out my business plan, Carter Medical Solutions. I'd already secured 2 clients, small practices that paid me to clean up their billing disasters. The revenue was modest but growing. What I hadn't told anyone was that I'd been approached by Dr. Patricia Holloway, who ran a network of 12 practices across 3 counties. She wanted someone to overhaul her entire billing system. The contract was worth $200,000 over 18 months. I'd been hesitating, unsure if I was ready. My parents' announcement had just eliminated my uncertainty. Monday morning, I called Dr. Holloway's office. "I'm ready to accept your offer," I told her assistant. "Wonderful," came the reply. "Dr. Holloway will be pleased. Can you start next month?" "I can start next week." That evening, I gave notice at my current job. My supervisor, who'd always treated me fairly, looked surprised. "You have something else lined up." "My own company," I replied. "I'm going independent," she smiled. "I wondered when you'd figure out you were too good for this place. Good luck, Sophie." Over the next 6 weeks, while Brianna posted countdown photos to Paris, I worked 18-hour days building my business infrastructure. I hired 2 part-time assistants, both former classmates who understood medical billing. I leased a small office space. I purchased software that would automate the processes I'd been doing manually. Dr. Holloway's network was more chaotic than I'd anticipated. Years of poor billing practices had left thousands of dollars uncollected. Insurance claims were filed incorrectly. Patient accounts were a disaster. It was exactly the challenge I needed. My parents called occasionally, always to discuss Brianna's preparations. "She's so nervous," my mother would say. "Paris is such a big step." I bit back the observation that I'd taken big steps too, just without their financial safety net. The night before Brianna's departure, they hosted a going-away party. Relatives gathered, offering congratulations and asking about her plans. "And what about you, Sophie?" my aunt asked. "Still doing medical billing?" I have my own consulting company now, I replied. My father overheard. That's nice, honey. Everyone needs a side hustle these days. A side hustle, not a career, not a business. Just something I did on the side of my real life, whatever he imagined that to be. I smiled and said nothing. Let them underestimate me. 3 weeks after Brianna left for Paris, Dr. Holloway called me personally. Sophie, I don't know how you did it, but we just received payments on claims we'd written off as uncollectible. $47,000 in 1 week. I refiled them correctly, I explained. Most were just coding errors. Insurance companies deny first, pay later. You have to know how to speak their language. How many more can you recover? I've identified approximately 300,000 in recoverable claims across your practices. It'll take time, but it's there. The silence on the phone was profound. Then, I'm referring you to everyone I know. You're a miracle worker. Word spread quickly in medical circles. By month 3, I had 6 major clients. By month 5, I'd hired 4 full-time employees and moved to a larger office. I was working 90-hour weeks, but every dollar I earned was mine. No parent funding, no safety net, just competence and relentless attention to detail. Brianna's Paris posts showed a different kind of work. Cafes, museums, weekend trips to Belgium. My parents commented constantly, living vicariously through her adventure. I liked her photos but never commented. My mother called one evening. You're so quiet on social media. Is everything okay? I'm busy with work, Mom. Oh, your billing thing. That's good, honey. At least you're keeping busy. Keeping busy. As if I were occupying time rather than building something real. 6 months after my parents' announcement, my company grossed $400,000. After expenses and salaries, I personally cleared $90,000, more than my father's salary as a mid-level manager, more than they'd given Brianna for her year abroad. I told no one. The following month, Dr. Holloway invited me to speak at a regional medical conference about billing optimization. You're the youngest speaker we've ever had, the organizer told me. Your reputation precedes you. The presentation went well. Afterward, 3 hospital administrators approached me about consulting contracts. Hospitals, not small practices. The scale was exponentially larger. I accepted all 3, knowing I'd need to expand my team significantly. By the end of that week, I'd hired a project manager and begun interviewing for 6 additional positions. My parents remained oblivious. They called to share Brianna's latest adventure, a ski trip to the Alps funded by the generous living stipend they provided. Isn't it wonderful that she's experiencing so much? My mother asked. It is, I agreed, and I meant it. Brianna was 21, living a life our parents made possible. I didn't resent her. I resented the assumption that I didn't deserve the same investment, the same belief, the same support. 1 year after their announcement, I received a call from a national healthcare consulting firm. They'd heard about my work and wanted to acquire my company. The offer was staggering. $2.4 million, plus a 5-year contract as their director of medical billing operations at $250,000 annually. I asked for a week to consider. That Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for dinner. Brianna was home for spring break, tanned and animated, sharing stories about French boyfriends and late-night philosophical discussions in Latin quarter bars. My parents hung on every word, asking questions, laughing at her anecdotes. And Sophie, my father finally asked, how's your billing work? It's going well, I replied. Busy, very. That's good, staying busy is important. There it was again, that diminishing phrase. I finished my meal, helped clear the table, and prepared to leave. You're not staying for dessert, my mother asked. I have an early meeting tomorrow. In my car, I made the call. I accept your offer, I told the acquisition firm's representative, with one condition. I want the announcement handled professionally. Press release, industry publications, the full treatment. Of course, this is a significant acquisition. We'll handle it appropriately. 2 weeks later, the announcement went public. Regional healthcare consulting firm acquires Carter Medical Solutions for $2.04 m, recognizes innovative billing recovery methods. The story was picked up by 3 industry publications and the local business journal. My phone exploded with congratulations from colleagues and former professors. My parents' first call came from my mother. Sophie, someone sent us an article with your name. Is this real? Yes, Mom. $2 million for your billing company. $2.4 million plus a long-term contract. Silence. Then my father's voice, he'd grabbed the other line. Why didn't you tell us you were running a real business? A real business, not my billing thing, not my side hustle. You never asked, I replied simply. I assumed you weren't interested. Not interested. Sophie, this is incredible. We had no idea. I tried to mention it several times. You always changed the subject back to Brianna. Another silence. This one longer, more uncomfortable. We're very proud of you, my mother finally said, though her voice carried uncertainty as if she wasn't sure she'd earned the right to claim pride. Thank you, I need to go. Conference call in 10 minutes. I hung up gently but firmly. The calls continued over the next week. My parents suddenly wanted details about my business, my success, my plans. I answered politely but briefly. I was genuinely busy with the transition, training my replacement manager, integrating my systems with the larger firm's infrastructure. Brianna called separately. Sophie, I saw the article. This is amazing. I had no idea you were doing all this. I know, I replied, without accusation, just fact. I feel terrible. Mom and Dad never talked about your work. They made it sound like you were just doing basic data entry. I was initially, then I built something more. While I was spending their money in Paris. Her voice had gone quiet. You were doing what they made possible for you, Bri. That's not wrong. The wrong was in how they valued us differently. What can I do to make it right? Nothing. This isn't about you and me. It's about me proving something to myself. The transition to the larger firm took 3 months. My team integrated smoothly, my clients were retained, and I began my new role with a corner office and a staff of 47 people. At 25, I was the youngest director in the company's history. My parents invited me to dinner to celebrate. I almost declined, but curiosity won. When I arrived, the dining room table was set formally. My father stood when I entered, something he'd never done before. Sophie, we owe you an apology, he began. I sat down, saying nothing. We made assumptions about your path, my mother continued. We thought because you chose community college and worked full-time, you weren't ambitious. We were wrong. You thought I didn't deserve help because I was already helping myself, I said calmly. You confused my independence with not needing support. My father nodded. We failed you. We see that now. I don't need your apology, I replied and watched them flinch. I needed your belief, your interest, your assumption that I was capable of great things even if my path looked different from Brianna's. You're right, my mother said quietly. What can we do? I considered this. What could they do? The money didn't matter anymore. I had more than they'd given my sister. But there was something else, something that couldn't be purchased. Acknowledge what happened, I said finally. Don't rewrite history. Don't pretend you always believed in me. Just acknowledge that you made a choice and I succeeded despite it, not because of it. The dinner that followed was stilted, uncomfortable. We were rebuilding something, but the foundation had cracks that would always show. Brianna came home for summer break. She'd changed, grown more thoughtful. She visited my office, meeting my team, asking real questions about the business. I wasted their money, she admitted over coffee. I partied in Paris, I barely studied. Did you enjoy it? I asked. Parts of it, but I felt guilty the whole time, knowing they gave me everything while you got nothing. I got something, I corrected. I got motivation. Sometimes the best gift is being underestimated. It removes the pressure to meet expectations and lets you exceed them on your own terms. She smiled sadly. More generous than I'd be. I'm not generous. I'm just focused on what matters. Building something real matters. Resentment doesn't. My new role at the firm was challenging in different ways. I wasn't just solving billing problems. I was managing people, navigating corporate politics, representing the company at conferences. 6 months into my position, the CEO approached me about expanding our services nationally. You've proven the model works regionally. I want you to scale it. Every state, every major hospital system. The scope was enormous. It would require hearing hundreds of people, establishing offices in multiple cities, creating standardized systems that could adapt to different state regulations. I'll need significant autonomy, I told him, and a bigger team. Name your terms. I did. He agreed to all of them. Over the next year, I built a division of 300 people across 12 offices. The division generated $40 million in revenue its first full year. My compensation reflected this contribution. At 26, I was earning $700,000 annually plus equity. I bought a house, not a mansion, but a comfortable space in a good neighborhood. I furnished it simply, hosted dinners for my team, created a home office where I could work early mornings before the chaos of the day began. My parents visited once. They walked through the rooms with expressions of wonder and something else. regret, perhaps, or confusion about how their overlooked daughter had built this life. "You did all this yourself," my father said, standing in my office looking at the framed business awards on the wall. "Yes, we should have helped you." "I didn't need your help," I replied, though not unkindly. "I needed your respect. There's a difference." Brianna graduated with mediocre grades and no clear direction. My parents, perhaps overcompensating, asked if I had any job openings. "Not in my division," I told them honestly. "She doesn't have the qualifications. But I can refer her to our HR department for entry-level positions." Brianna took an entry-level job in our marketing department. She worked hard, showing up early, staying late, trying to prove herself. We'd have lunch occasionally. She never asked for special treatment. "Thank you for not holding Paris against me," she said during one of these lunches. "Paris wasn't the problem, Bri. The problem was Mom and Dad's assumption that your dreams mattered more than mine, because yours fit their idea of success." Do they understand that now? I think they're starting to. 2 years after my parents' dinner announcement, they asked to meet with me privately. We gathered at their house, just the three of us. "We want to give you money," my father said, "to make up for what we gave Brianna." I shook my head. "I don't want your money." "Please," my mother insisted. "Let us balance things." "You can't balance things with money. You taught me that I had to earn everything myself. You gave me the gift of self-reliance, even if you didn't mean to. I won't let you take that away now by throwing money at your guilt." My father looked pained. "Then what can we do?" "Tell people the truth. When your friends ask about your successful daughter, tell them about the one who built a company from nothing. Tell them about the choices you made and what I did with them. Don't airbrush history." They agreed. I heard later from relatives that my parents had started doing exactly that, sharing my story with uncomfortable honesty about their own mistakes. At 28, I was promoted to vice president of operations for the entire firm. The announcement came with a significant equity stake and a seat on the board. I was the youngest board member in the company's 40-year history. The press release made local and national news. "Young executive rises to VP at major healthcare firm, credits work ethic and strategic vision." My parents framed the article. It hung in their living room next to Brianna's college diploma. The symmetry felt appropriate. Different achievements, different paths, finally given equal space on the wall. Brianna had found her footing in marketing. She was good at it, creative and energetic. She'd moved into her own apartment, paying her own way. We'd grown closer. The dynamic between us more balanced now that we were both adults building independent lives. "I used to resent you," she admitted one evening over dinner. "When we were kids, you were so competent, you made everything look easy." "It wasn't easy," I replied. "I just didn't let anyone see the struggle. I see it now, what you built, how hard you must have worked." "Everyone's working hard at something, Bri. The difference is whose work gets recognized." My parents aged into their recognition of what they'd done. They didn't become different people, but they became more aware. They asked about my work genuinely, listened to my answers, offered support that I didn't need but appreciated anyway. My father retired. At his retirement party, he gave a speech about his 2 daughters. When he described my journey, he didn't sugarcoat his role. "I told Sophie she didn't deserve help. I was wrong. She didn't need help. She needed belief. And she succeeded despite not getting it from me. That's a failure I'll carry, and a success she earned entirely on her own." People shifted uncomfortably, unused to such raw honesty at a retirement celebration. But I appreciated it. Acknowledgement, even late, mattered. By 30, I'd been recruited by a Fortune 500 healthcare company to be their chief operating officer. The offer came with stock options worth millions and the opportunity to shape healthcare billing practices at a national scale. I accepted. My parents hosted a celebration dinner. This time, Brianna helped organize it, and the guest list included my team, my mentors, and colleagues who'd supported my journey. "A toast," my father said, raising his glass. "To Sophie, who taught me that the greatest gift we can give our children isn't money. It's the belief that they can do hard things. I gave that gift accidentally by withholding. She took it anyway and built something extraordinary." The room applauded. I met my parents' eyes across the table. We'd never have the relationship we might have had if they'd treated us equally from the start. We had something else now. Honesty, respect, understanding. My mother found me later in the evening, standing on the back porch watching the sunset. "I wish I could go back," she said quietly. "I wish I could change how we handled things when you were younger. If you had, I'd be different, I replied. Maybe better in some ways, maybe worse in others, I'll never know. What I do know is that I'm proud of who I became. So am I, she said, and this time her voice carried conviction. The following year, I established a scholarship fund for first-generation college students pursuing careers in healthcare administration. The fund prioritized students who worked full-time while attending school, who chose community colleges for practical reasons, who didn't fit traditional academic profiles. I named it the Carter Independent Scholars Fund. At the first scholarship ceremony, I told the recipients my story. Not to inspire pity, but to acknowledge that non-traditional paths could lead to extraordinary destinations. Someone once told me I didn't deserve help, I said to the audience of students, parents, and donors. They were wrong. Everyone deserves help. But what I learned is that deserving help and needing it to succeed are different things. You've all proven you can succeed without perfect circumstances. This scholarship isn't charity, it's recognition. You've already earned this through your resilience. The students' faces reflected my own younger self, determined, uncertain, working harder than they should have to because nobody had made it easy. I shook each recipient's hand, looked them in the eyes, and said words I needed to hear at their age. You deserve this, and you're going to do amazing things. My parents attended the ceremony. Afterward, my mother's eyes were red. This is what we should have given you, she said. Not just money, belief. You're giving it now, I replied, to these students. By supporting this fund, you're choosing differently than you did with me. At 32, I was exactly where I'd imagined during that Sunday dinner when my parents announced Brianna's Paris funding. Successful, independent, and secure. But I was also somewhere I hadn't imagined, at peace with my past. The resentment I'd carried had transformed into something more useful. Motivation, empathy, understanding that people make mistakes and growth comes from acknowledging them rather than defending them. Brianna and I had lunch monthly. She'd risen to senior marketing director, earned on her merit rather than family connections. She'd paid our parents back for Paris, though they'd protested. I needed to, she told me. I needed to know I could. How did it feel? Liberating, she smiled. Turns out you were right. Earning things yourself does feel different. My parents asked me once if I'd forgiven them. I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness implies I'm holding something against you. I'm not. I'm grateful, actually. You gave me something valuable, even if you didn't mean to. What's that? My father asked. Proof that I could succeed without conditions, that my worth wasn't tied to your approval or investment, that I could build something real from nothing but competence and determination. He nodded slowly. That's a generous interpretation. It's an honest one, I corrected. Generosity would be pretending it didn't hurt. Honesty is acknowledging it hurt, and I grew anyway. That Sunday dinner where they'd announced Brianna's Paris funding felt like it had happened to someone else. The girl who'd gripped the bathroom sink, absorbing their dismissal, had become a woman who'd built a career, a company, and a life that exceeded anything they could have funded. The envelope they'd wanted to give me, full of money to balance what they'd given my sister, still sat unoffered. I didn't need it. What I had was better. A story of self-made success, a family that had learned from their mistakes, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when someone says you don't deserve help, you can prove them wrong simply by helping yourself.